Hello builders, I'm Laszlo and today I'm going to show you how to get started with Amazon EventBridge, and we're going to build a small event-driven architecture that will integrate EventBridge with API Gateway for a small order processing application. Before we dive in, please make sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of the future content. Now, I already created some content on EventBridge, like for example on EventBridge pipes and EventBridge scheduler, which I'm going to link to this video. But I got some requests to introduce EventBridge properly, as many people don't have experience with it and don't know how to do some basic setups with it. I won't go into too much details on what EventBridge is, as you can find the definitions on its website. Let's just say that EventBridge is a serverless service that allows you to use events to connect different application components together. This way you are able to build scalable event-driven applications. It will route events from one source to another. The sources can be AWS services, your own application, or even third-party software. It has many features which allow you to create schedules, pipes, create event archives and replay the events. You can set up schema discovery, and then it can provide you with code binding, so you can have strongly typed events in your application. So the basic idea is that these events will flow into an event bus from where different targets can pick them up and do something with them. You can have many different event buses. You have a default event bus, and then you can create custom event buses for your applications. And you also have a partner event bus for third-party software as a service applications. Now, in this demo, I want to actually build a small application. This will be an order processing application. The order will be received by the API gateway in form of a post request, and it will create an event from that order, and it will send it to EventBridge. Then EventBridge will route the event to its various targets based on the rules that we are going to configure. So what we need is the following. We are going to create a custom event bus. This will receive the orders in form of events. Some rules that will determine which targets will receive our events. So a CloudWatch events rule, this will forward all events to a CloudWatch log group for analysis. A second Lambda function rule, this one will forward our order event to a processing Lambda function. In a real world situation, this should process the order. And a third rule, which will be the step functions rule, this will forward our order event to a state machine, which will handle the shipment and confirm once the shipment of the order was completed. Of course, you could have many other different event rules depending on your application. These are just some examples that we are going to implement here. And then to front all of this, we are going to have an API gateway. This will receive the orders from our web shop and send them to EventBridge. So we're not going to actually implement the web shop, just the API gateway. We're going to build this in the AWS console, but I'm also going to show you a SAM template, which allows us to deploy this whole application with infrastructure as code. And I will, of course, link this template. I'm in the GitHub repo where this is stored. And you can download this template and use it for your projects as a starting point. Also, on the blog, there's a full walkthrough if you prefer content in text format. So now let's get started with this. So here I am in the AWS Management Console. And the first thing I want to do, I want to go to EventBridge. You can find this in the services menu in the application integration menu point. So Amazon EventBridge, let's go here. Now here we can find the event buses menu item. You see you have a default event bus that is created for you, and you cannot delete this one. This is for AWS events, but you can also use it for yourself. But usually you would create your own event bus for your application. So let's create it. So I'm going to create an orders bus, for example. And then let's just click on create. Now that this is done, what we want to do, we want to save this RN as we're going to need it later. So just copy this and put it somewhere to be used later. Now that we have this done, let's create some rules for our orders bus. So here on the rules menu point, you can go here and you have to choose your orders bus, event bus, and then just create a rule. And our first rule is going to be a CloudWatch rule. So we are going to send all the events to CloudWatch for later analysis. So I'm going to call this order to CloudWatch log group. Okay, we're going to skip description. We will go to rule with event pattern and then click on next. Here you will choose other. Scroll down here where you have event pattern. And here for the event pattern, we have to set up our filter. So basically this will filter the events. And in this case, I don't want to filter them at all. So I'm going to use this snippet, which you can find on the blog if you want to copy it from there. So we are saying that we want to match this rule for all the events which has the prefix in the source field, which has this prefix, so an empty prefix. This means basically that we want to match all the events that are coming in. And for a CloudWatch log group, this is a good solution to capture all the events that are coming into the bus. So click on next after you have pasted this here, and then we want to select the target. You can have up to 5 targets for a rule, but now let's select here CloudWatch log group, and here you can put a log group name. So let's call this orders order events logs. Okay, and then let's click on next, next again, and create the rule. So we have our first rule, and now we're going to add another one. So let's click again on create rule, and this time we're going to send our events to a Lambda function. So let's call this order to Lambda, and then here we're going to leave everything on default. Click on next. Here choose other, scroll down, and for event pattern, this time we're going to use a different pattern. So here we want to match all the events that have these in the source field. They have this prefix, so com.majestic.orders. And you see, you can set up different sources to behave differently. So send the events to different targets depending on what they have in the source field. So we want only to match this for this rule. Okay, now click on next. Here we want to choose Lambda, and we're going to use a Lambda function which I already created beforehand. And this will be the process order Lambda function. I'm going to show it to you in just a bit. So let's do this. Let's click on next, and next again, and then click on create rule. Okay, let me show you that Lambda function. So that simulates taking the order, but it doesn't actually do much with it. So it's a very simple Lambda function. Here you have it, it receives the event. This will be the event that is coming from EventBridge. This will be your order. And then it will just return the event and the message that it says received an event order from EventBridge processing. So we're simulating this. Okay, so we have 2 rules. We need to create the third one. So let's create rule. And this one will be the step functions. So order to shipment state machine. Okay, click on next. Here we want to select other again, and for the event pattern we're going to use the same pattern. We're going to match events that have this source, so Majestic orders. Click on next, and this time we're going to select the step function state machine. But before that, let me just show you, you have a whole range of AWS services that you can use as targets. So we're going to use step functions as the target. I have to select the state machine. I already created one. I'm going to show this one as well. So click on next, next again, and then create rule. And this should be now done. Let's see that state machine. So it's a very simple one. Of course, in a real life situation, this would be much more complex. But for the sake of the demo, I wanted to keep it short. So basically what it will do, it will call a Lambda function. If you would want to handle the shipment, you would have multiple steps and even maybe human approval. Someone have to confirm that the order has been shipped. So this would be much more complex. But for the demo, we're keeping it simple. Okay, let's go back. So now we have our events. And now if I want to, sorry, the rules. So if I want to send now an event, I can go to event buses, go to the order bus and send events. And I could send an event like, for example, for the event source, I'm going to put something here, com. So this should only match the CloudWatch event logs, CloudWatch logs group. And for detail, let's say this is an order, and then here it would be my order actually. Let's say product, it will be a chair, and let's just send this. So it has been sent. If we go to CloudWatch, I should have a log group there, and my log group, because it triggers on any source, should contain this event. So let's see, here is this order events logs. Let's open it in a new tab, and if we go there, it's here. It should be, you see a log stream. If I open it, you will see detail product chair, detail type order, source com. Okay, now just a moment. So I also have some other log groups for the process order Lambda function, which you see doesn't contain any log stream, so it didn't receive anything. Same thing for the shipment shipping handler Lambda function, it didn't got anything. Now let's go back to EventBridge and send another event, but this time I'm going to have the right source, Majestic and should be orders. Okay, it will be order, and let's add this time the product will be phone, let's say. Okay, click on send. If we go back to CloudWatch, go to order event logs, we have another one, and this one is the phone. But this time, if I go back in the process order here, I should have one as well. So this time the Lambda function was triggered, and it received this phone product. And also for the shipping handler, it should be triggered, and I have it here. But we can also go to the step function state machine, and here we have the execution logs. Succeeded. If we open it, you can see we have a successful execution, and here we have the response from the Lambda function, which is invoked here, and we have product phone. Okay, so that's all nice, but what if we want to send the events from API gateway? Because that's the normal flow that you would have. You have a web shop and the front end sends the order to an API endpoint. So let's set up API gateway to receive the orders and send them to EventBridge. And we have to start with an IAM, because we have to create an IAM policy and an IAM role, which will be used by API gateway to call EventBridge. Let's start with policies, and we're going to start with an IAM policy. Let's create policy, and here for the service you have to choose EventBridge, and you should choose here put events as the permission. We want to have this permission to put events, and then here we have to paste in the RN of our event bus. So I told you to copy this earlier, so just paste it in here and click on add. Or alternatively, you could copy the JSON from the blog where I have this and put it in. Just replace the RN of the event bus. Okay, so let's click next. We're not going to add any tags. This will be our API, orders API to EventBridge permissions policy. Okay, create this policy, and now we have to create a role which will have this policy attached. So let's go to roles and let's create another role, and this time here we have to choose the use case for other AWS services. Choose API gateway, and then click on here, select it first, and then click on next. And here we are not able to add the policy directly. First we have to save the role. Let's call this orders API to EventBridge role. Create a role, and once we have it, this one, orders API to EventBridge role, so this is the one I've created right now. Okay, and then here add the permissions, so attach policies, and we have to find that orders API EventBridge permission policy. Attach the policy we created earlier, and we're done. We just need to copy the RN of the role because we are going to need this a bit later. So just copy it and save it somewhere. And now we have to go to API gateway and actually set it up. So I'm going to API gateway in the console, and we're going to start building a REST API. So click on build. Here it offers us to use the example API. We don't want that. We want to create our own API called orders API. Okay, click on create API. Now here click on this and create a resource, and let's call this the orders resource. Create it, then click on it and create a method. This will be our post method. So let's choose post and click on this check mark, and we have to select the integration, which is going to be an AWS service. The region will be US West for me. You are going to choose your own version, own region. The service has to be CloudWatch events. So this was the old name of EventBridge, and you have to use that one. The HTTP method will be post, and here for use action name we're going to write put events like this. And now we have to paste that execution role that we've created just a bit earlier for the IAM role. paste it in here, and then you can just click on save. Once this is done, we have to go in and change the integration request, the mapping template. Here, expand this mapping templates, and here choose when there are no templates defined. Add mapping template, call this application/JSON. Click on the check mark, and then you can add your integration template. And I'm going to paste it here. I already prepared this. You can find it on the blog, which I'm going to link below the video if you want to copy this. So we are overriding some headers which are needed for this operation. Then we are taking the input, and we are creating entries for each of the items from the order. We're specifying the details. The detail type will be order. We have to specify the event bus name and the source. So here you can set also the source, and these will become Majestic orders. And it will do this for each of the entries that I will have in the payload. So click on save, and then we can deploy this API. Scroll up, and here on the actions menu, click on deploy API, create a new stage. So it's going to be prod. Click on deploy, and it should take a few seconds until it is deployed. And now what we want to do, we want to test this. So we have several ways of testing this. We could send a curl request. So let's open Cloud Shell here. Cloud Shell is a terminal that's running in your browser. And here I'm going to paste the request. So it looks like this. So we're going to send a curl request to our API gateway. I just have to change the ID. So this will be the ID of the API gateway. And I'm going to replace this old one. And then you have to have the region here, and stage, and resource. You also find this on the blog, this example request. Then we are sending a header, and we are going to send the order data. So our order contains two products. So this will generate two events in the event bus. So it will translate it to two events. So let's just click on paste, and you see we got back this response. So this should mean that yeah, sorry, it disappeared. Let's repeat it. So we'll have 4 in the event bus, 4 events. It will get this response. It created 2 events again, and we have a failed entry count of 0. This is one way of testing it. The other way would be to go here on the API, click on the post, and here you have this test button. You can click on it, scroll down, and in the request body you could just paste in the order like this. So this will achieve the same thing in order to test the event. So I'm going to click again on test. You see again I get these entries. So it created 2 events. In total I should have 6 events created for me. So let me go back to CloudWatch, and if I refresh here, go to order event logs, you're going to see that I'm having a bunch of events coming in the last 2 minutes. So this is the 6 events that I have sent. So let's open one, and you're going to see this is that ID2, the sofa, and also this one is the chair. And if I go to the other log groups for the process order, here I'm going to have a fewer ones because they will use the same execution environment from Lambda to have the events. So you see here we have multiple events in the same Lambda function processed. If we go to step functions, there again you see I have a few more executions. In total I should have 6, except the one that I made earlier when I've shown you this. So this was successfully executed. So now let's also see the SAM template. So here's the SAM template in Visual Studio Code. It's a pretty simple one. We have the orders API, regional type of API, and we have the orders resource defined here. And we have all those things that we configured manually. We have them here in this template. Even the integration templates are here. Then we have the execution role, so even the role is created for us automatically, and the policy that we need. Then here we create the event bus. So it's a pretty simple code to create an event bus. And then we have the Lambda functions, the processor Lambda function, process order. We have the state machine. This is also created here with the necessary policies. Then we have the Lambda function that is inside the state machine. And then we have also the CloudWatch rule. So this one will send events to CloudWatch. And we have also the log group created here with the retention period of 14 days. This is the log group name. And then we have the permission policy for the CloudWatch logs usage and so on. So one thing I want to point out here is that for the Lambda function, you see I'm attaching the event directly to the Lambda function. So you have here events, EventBridge rule, and the Lambda will be triggered by this event. The same thing for the state machine. Here we have the event attached directly to the state machine with this EventBridge rule. But in case of the CloudFormation, the CloudWatch group, we have a CloudFormation syntax. So here I'm creating first the CloudWatch log group. Here it is. And then I create a rule in which I say this is the event bus name, this is the event pattern, this is the target. So this CloudWatch log group. Okay, and then we have the permission policy. You need this one in order for your event bus to be able to communicate with EventBridge. And you would do the following: SAM deploy, and this would deploy the whole thing to your AWS account. It will initiate a deployment, it will create a change set, and it will deploy the whole thing to the AWS account. Now one thing, if you're doing this the first time, you would have to fill out some parameters. You have to do SAM deploy guided. But that's only the first time. So then it will create everything and you will have this whole thing created automatically for you. So now it finished the creation of the stack. If we go back to our AWS console and we go to CloudFormation, then I should have it here. Just a moment. So this is this EventBridge test SAM stack, and you see here we have the events that occurred, what kind of events happened, and also the resources that got created, the roles for the functions themselves, and then also the API gateway. So everything is here and you can start using it. So this is it. It was a bit of a long video, but hopefully it was helpful and you understood how to set up EventBridge for this small use case that we had here. If you like the video, click on the like button, share it, subscribe to the channel, and come back for another episode, which is going to be again on EventBridge, and this time on event archives and event replace. So see you soon. Have a great day.